Welcome back. Can everyone hear me? Yeah? It's loud enough? Okay. We're a few minutes early, but I think everyone's here, so we'll begin. This is going to be my last solo session because tomorrow Jennifer is in the morning, and then we're going to be together in the afternoon. And there's a few things I wanted to just touch on in this session. And one of the most important virtues, I think, in every tradition is the virtue of faith and devotion and love. And we're all spiritual aspirants. We've all been on the path for a while. So there has been the cultivation of that in each of us. It's so obvious in how we behave and how we serve each other and how we treat each other. But just like all the other aspects of Buddhism, faith has many levels. And faith has enormous power in it, as does devotion. And faith and devotion are very linked into the cultivation of bodhicitta, compassion. And the cultivation of bodhicitta is the most necessary aspect of awakening. You actually, I think in all traditions this would be true, certainly in the teachings of Christ, mystical Christianity, Hindu. Our ability to be kind and generous and practice the 6 paramitas, which I'll go over in a few minutes. Our ability to care about other people is what arises in us the ability to awaken out of samsara into higher realms. Because in higher realms, there is not a strong sense of self such that there is self-cherishing. And self-cherishing is something that we see a lot here in our world. It's the number one obstacle to awakening. It is really the obstacle, the I, the belief in a me. And if we turn our attention, if we don't know anything, if we're not even on a spiritual path, but we have love and compassion and devotion, we care about other people, we see other people in need, and we come to their need, we serve them. If we know nothing else, awakening will happen on some level. The movement from self-cherishing, self-absorption, to caring about other people is the movement from believing in the I to the evaporation of that clinging to the I. Right? And all over our world we see so many people that are tending to the needs of others. And just like meditative absorption can happen through our receiving new information and new material and focusing on that and thinking about that and the virtue of that new material, what it's bringing forth, what we're receiving from it is replacing old ways of thinking. In the same way, serving other people, serving humanity, being selfless, does the exact same thing. It replaces the place where we were primarily thinking about ourselves and what we want and what we can acquire, and so that our focus is on what humanity needs, what other people need. And in spiritual journeys, I think we have all heard this many times, when we're serving other people, when we're thinking about other people, caring about other people, showing compassion for other people, we're actually doing that for our very self. Because we're connected, we're all connected, and they are just a reflection of ourselves. So in serving others, we're really serving ourselves. There's we talk about how to eliminate our thoughts, how to eliminate our conceptions, the processing of our mind, the 12 links, how to cut those links. And the arising of bodhicitta and the arising of love and compassion does also the same thing. It cuts through the links of how we're thinking about ourselves or whatever these negative thoughts may be. It just helps us, it kind of demolishes that in a certain way. It's a true way into also higher realms because it's through devotion and love and compassion that we actually can have encounters with Jesus, saints and masters that have transcended this realm. I want to read a few passages about this from the words of my perfect teacher. Such a beautiful book, and it was written just with the immersion of Patrul Rinpoche's consciousness in loving his teacher. And he goes through a lot of the conduct, really, of the path. We didn't do a lot of that here because, again, I think so many of us have already established that as a foundation in our lives. But I do want to talk about the 6 paramitas for a few minutes and do some passages from words of my perfect teacher, because it continues to be a deep inspiration for me. When I do get discouraged or I have moments of confusion, which happens, right? There's moments that just things, there's not that clarity. There's like, what's going on? And am I thinking about all this right? And, we question ourselves. Thoughts are arising, and we can dismiss those thoughts. But as Jennifer was saying, if we do want to look at those thoughts, and we just are honest with, I feel a little confused, I feel a little discouraged, it happens on the path, of course. What I like to come back to, just to simplify the whole thing, is I love my root guru. I know that, right? I have faith in my root guru. I have faith in my teachers. I have faith in the wonderful awakened beings that are supporting me. I know I could always find my devotion. I could always find my faith. Right? So, if I have a sense of, maybe I'm going about something in the wrong way, or I made an error, or I harmed somebody through, making a mistake, or, which is a very big thing, I can come back to, okay, I can see that I'm a little in confusion, but I know I can always come into my heart and feel love. It's a constant. It's like, when we have children, we love our children. We always know we love our children. And I think just that simple act, that simple moving attention into, I know I love. Can clear up any mistake we think, seeming mistake, any seeming problem, anything that makes samsara all of a sudden become very real for us. And what's very connected to that, even as, in my mundane human condition, if I could feel my love, if I know it's always there, I could always touch it, I could always feel it, I could always look at a picture of Guru Rinpoche and well up. That will always be what's happening. And other masters as well, the same thing for Jesus and other teachers in my life, other masters. If that's true for me, I can't conceive of the amount of love and compassion that these higher advanced beings have for all of us, where they would be waiting for us to ask for help so they can come and support us on the path. Right? And this passage I'm going to read is from Myriad Worlds. I think I spoke of it a little bit. It's the first in the 10-volume set of Jamgon Kongtrul, who kind of spent his life in the monastery and in retreat, and then in his spare time, he wrote the Treasury of Knowledge, which is actually a complete summary of the entire Buddhist path. And he kind of did that, They say that he wrote most of it in 4 months. You're talking like 10,000 pages. But, he was also, there's a lot of stories of him, we could read about his biography, where he was one of these Rinpoches or Bodhisattvas that would find terma treasures, right? Teachings that were buried in caves or, would come down into the minds of Bodhisattvas from like the sky. There's a lot of stories about terma treasures. So these terma treasures would get downloaded and he would just present it in these books. And it was like the whole summary of the path. And I thought one of the really beautiful, interesting things about Jamgon Kongtrul was that he lived in the 1800s. So he wrote this whole, pretty much an encyclopedia called the Treasury of Knowledge, which tells you, it doesn't get into all the depths of everything, but if you read it, you know the path. You know this particular Buddhist path. And it's said that in higher realms, it was very understood that in the 1900s, right, there would be an upheaval in Tibet. And Tibetans would be either exiled and they would lose their country. So one of the kind of life purposes, and Jamgon Kongtrul took this on, was to come in the 1800s and write this pretty much summary of the path, which would stay intact through the kind of desecration of Tibet in the 1950s. And that is exactly what happened in 1959 and in the 1950s, but 1959 was really when everything turned around with the invasion of Tibet. A lot of the monks, knowing that the armies were coming in to take over, started burying all the peshas, all the sutras. They would collect them all and hide them in caves. And that's what they were spending their time doing right before the Communist Party came in. They weren't really trying to save themselves, they were trying to save the Dharma. That was the big push at that time. They didn't leave the monastery. They were just completely thinking, how much can we save and how can we save it? They were burying statues. They were moving things out of the monastery. They knew that the monasteries would be leveled, actually, which is what happened. When the Communist parties came in, armies came in, they actually went to the caves and found a lot of these teachings and burned them. And it's said that the majority of the teachings that had been accumulated over all these hundreds or thousands of years were actually destroyed. And if it hadn't been for Jamgon Kongtrul's Treasury of Knowledge, all the things that he had written, that had gotten preserved, that Buddhism may have been, actually the tradition may have been wiped out. So there was a very big picture going on during all of this. I know we've been talking about this bigger picture, and I when I read that about, put all the pieces together of the story, we can see how our life purpose has an effect far-reaching. We really don't know. We're asked to do something, we may do that something as part of our service, and the far-reaching effects of it can save a tradition. You know, it's just amazing and magnificent. Yeah, so I got a little off track there, but I'm going to read this from the volume 1, which is Myriad Worlds, which kind of talks about these higher realms and the path in a summary way before it gets more in detail. For as long as infinite space and sentient beings exist, the compassion of the victorious ones, which is bodhisattvas in higher realms, and the actions of sentient beings continue without end. Those to be guided and enlightened guides manifest through inconceivable connections. When the characters and dispositions of those to be guided are activated, the compassion of the guides arise, and the configurations of the realms and the dimensions of awakening appear. The miraculous methods of guiding others manifest beyond all bounds. So in part what that is kind of talking about is that when we cultivate our own bodhicitta, when love and devotion arises in us, it actually calls forth the compassion and bodhicitta of advanced beings who then come and get us or give us signs on our path, or we encounter them. And through these signs and these encounters, we have the conviction that we are not alone. And that makes a big difference. It's a pivotal point in the human existence, in the human psychology, to go from thinking we're on our own to conviction that we are not. How supported we are. It's truly amazing. And one of the reasons I love this passage is because at the root of this passage, the heart of this passage, is love and devotion. It's our faith, it's our devotion that is calling to higher beings, whatever the tradition is. It doesn't matter. So I want to also read a few passages from the words of my perfect teacher about faith. It's written so beautifully, and I think it's so poetic. Of course, in Buddhism, as everything else is, there's different levels of faith, and they each mean different things. The faith that I always pronounce his name wrong, Patrul Rinpoche talks about, is called confident faith. It's the faith that arises with conviction. We know we have faith. We have a sense of real conviction of what we believe. You know, we have confidence in our own bodhicitta and love and devotion. Confident faith is the faith that arises from the depth of our hearts once we understand the extraordinary qualities and the power of the blessings on the path. The faith of total trust allows blessings to enter you. When the mind is free of doubt, whatever you wish can be achieved. Faith is like a seed from which everything positive can grow. If faith is absent, it is as though that seed has been burnt. The sutras say, in those who lack faith, nothing positive will grow. Just as from a burnt seed, no green shoot will ever sprout. Of all the noble riches, faith is the most important. It is said, the precious wheel of faith rolls day and night along the road of virtue. Faith is the most precious of all our resources. It brings an inexhaustible supply of virtues, like a treasure. It carries us along the path to liberation, like a pair of legs, and gathers up everything positive for us, like a pair of arms. Faith is the greatest wealth and treasure, the best of legs. It is the basis for gathering all virtues, like arms. The compassion and blessings of the path are inconceivable, but nevertheless, their ability to reach into us depends entirely on our faith and devotion. If you have immense faith and devotion, the compassion and blessings you receive from your teacher and the path, the three jewels, will be equally immense. If your faith and devotion are just moderate, the compassion and blessings that reach you will also be moderate. If you only have a little faith and devotion, only a little compassion and blessings will reach you. If you have no faith and devotion at all, you will get absolutely nothing. Even today, whenever the Buddha is invoked with sincere faith and devotion, he is there bestowing blessings. For the Buddha's compassion, there is no near or far. For all those who think of Buddha with faith, the Buddha is there in front of them and will give empowerments and blessings. And the great master of Udayana, Padmasambhava, says, "For all men and women with faith in me, I, Padmasambhava, have never departed. I sleep beside their door. For me there is no such thing as death. Before each person with faith, there is Padmasambhava." And this passage was taken from the chapter on faith and devotion as part of the paramitas, as part of the conduct and the foundation for the path. I think sometimes, I also skip over these things, the conduct, because I just take for granted, well, we have conduct, we're on the path, we've been on the path for years. But I think it's worth going back and, revisiting virtues of the path and how powerful they are. How we really can't enter the path in a real way, without them. And also, I'm speaking this from the words of my perfect teacher, which is a Tibetan Buddhist book. But this is pretty much what Jesus also said. Right, I'm always with you. And Ladimahama has said the same thing. Ramakrishna. Every saint has said pretty much the same thing and has modeled faith and devotion and love in their entire life. Mother Teresa. All saints and masters have this incredible quality. And it is a quality that continues to deepen on the path. The more we awaken, the deeper our bodhicitta is cultivated and arises. And the 6 virtues that again, I think are in every tradition that we speak about quite a bit in the preliminaries. We call them preliminaries. It's the foundation of the path. Then there's 6 of them. There's generosity, ethical conduct, patience, diligence, meditation, and wisdom. And these 6 paramitas, these 6 virtues, is what we go back to on a continual basis and practice to advance on the path. And some teachers say these 6 virtues are more important than, a lot of the other methods that we're taught in Vajrayana. That without these 6, there is no Vajrayana. There's no Tantra. There's no deity practice. Without the cultivation and practice of these 6 paramitas, because these 6 paramitas bring us to the depths of our heart. Generosity is giving from ourselves in a way that love and devotion will deepen. And it's true for all of these. They all are a way to deepen and cultivate bodhicitta. So again, when I'm kind of feeling confused, I'm reading, this material, and it's like, I don't understand this, it seems to contradict each other, maybe I don't really understand the path at all. You have these thoughts, I go back to the virtues. I know I can practice patience. I know I can practice diligence. And I think connected to all this is also our affiliation, our connection with Sangha, a group of people that are also on the path, doing what we're doing. They're a constant source of inspiration. I wouldn't even be on the path if it wasn't for Sangha. There's no way I could have done it on my own. I hear some people talk about doing it on their own. I have no sense of that myself. I think Sangha is integral. And for myself also, and this is personal and subjective for everyone, I find that having teachers is equally important, because with the purity of a teacher, we find our love and devotion so fast. Khenpo Lobsang, Khenpo Jigme are my teachers. Sharon is my teacher. We can have more than one teacher. Trungpa Rinpoche is my root guru. And there's just, when I went to Nepal, that arising of love and devotion for Rinpoche was completely overwhelming. I literally, in Tibetan Buddhism, when we kind of enter into the shrine where his body was, when those last days before his cremation, you're not supposed to cry and I was like bawling in front of all these lamas sitting there. I was just so overwhelmed. My love for him, and it's just always there. So I think our bond with our root guru, with our teachers, the purity of a teacher, and to really understand what teachers and gurus are really doing. They're sacrificing so much to give to us. Really, it's kind of like, no, my life is in service now. And Jesus was one of the most amazing models of that. He gave his entire life. And there's the story of Namo Buddha, which is in Nepal. Namo Buddha is a real place, and that's where Trungpa Rinpoche established his monastery after he was exiled from Tibet. And it's in Namo Buddha that there is the story of the Buddha in one of his previous lives. He eventually became Buddha Shakyamuni 2,500 years ago. But in his previous lives, he was just a 5-year-old boy. And he was in Namo Buddha in Nepal, and he was in the forest, and he came across a tiger that was dying from starvation, and all the little cubs were there. I think there were 5 cubs, right? And of course, they were going to die too. So in that lifetime, Buddha gave his life to the tiger. The tiger ate the 5-year-old Buddha. And this 5-year-old Buddha then awakened in Dewa Shin, in a heaven state. And at 5 years old, he probably, had not entered a path yet. He wasn't full of material and information and practices and methods. He was just a 5-year-old boy with, truly a beautiful being even then, as we all are. But all he knew was he saw the starving animal and he gave his life for this animal. So even if we're not on the path, but we have love and we have compassion, we'll be fine. Yeah, we can rely on that. And that's been a big lesson for me, because I can get very caught up in the academia of the spiritual journey. All these words and what do they mean and all this. But then I find myself always wanting to realize when I need to come back to the basics. What got me started on the path was love. I fell in love with Jesus, with St. Teresa of Avila, my own teacher. And I was reading Adyashanta's kind of autobiography, and it was the same for him. He was so in love with St. Teresa of Avila, he was completely obsessed. I remember those feelings of being completely obsessed with Jesus. And that's devotion. The cultivation of compassion and how faith is deepened. So I felt for this session, it would be nice to do a guided meditation. Just come in deeply into our hearts. We all have instances, recollections, the feelings inside of love and devotion. And to use this little bit of time we have in this session to just go there and feel that, and feel our own love and devotion arise to support everything that's come in this retreat. So if we want to just take a few minutes and get comfortable. And someone in the back, Vinny, you want to hit the lights? Turn the lights down. Is that okay for everyone? Do we lower the lights? Thank you. So if we just want to sit for a moment. We could use the next few moments to let go of any worries, any remnants of things we have to do, thoughts. And just kind of drop into our hearts, or feeling nature. And we can always in meditation use meditative time to contemplate. And contemplating faith and devotion is a beautiful way to cultivate more of it. What is love? What is devotion? What is faith? And Jesus said if we had the faith of a mustard seed, we could move a mountain. What an extraordinary thing to say. What a pointing to the power of faith. When we get discouraged in our practice, when it seems like it's not moving, not progressing, we're not awakening on the schedule we had set for ourselves, our faith and our devotion is the anesthesia for the disturbed mind. We're fine. We have love. And love is the path. In the midst of the confusion in our world, there are so many accounts of people acting generously, selflessly. There's a channel, actually multiple channels on YouTube, which they just video acts of kindness. I watch these videos when I want to cry. The number one celebrity on YouTube is called Mr. Beast. And he goes to people and hands them money for no reason. Or he finds people in need and he gives them an abundance of whatever it is they need. He's the most popular channel on the entire YouTube. So there's a lot of instances of love and devotion and kindness that we can find in this crazy world. And we are also participants. Everyone here has acted in beautiful and selfless ways, has shown patience when it's needed, or sacrificed, with no expectation of anything in return, which is the definition of selfless service. We don't want anything in return. We're not thinking about that. There's a need, and we know we can fill that need for someone else or in a situation. In Buddhism, it's believed that karma ripens as we get near a transition. So if we've lived a life of miserliness and insensitivity, etc., that's what we'll see towards the end. And if we've lived our life full of love and kindness and generosity, that ripens at the end. And we are then carried over to the other shore. Even the Dalai Lama has said, "My religion is kindness." It's love and devotion and kindness that will transform the planet. And of course, transform ourselves, which is already happening for so many of us. We can each see how we've become better people, more supportive people, gentler, giving. In Buddhism, it's also said by some of the teachers, this is the only way to monitor our progress. How much kinder have we become? How much more devotion and bodhicitta and compassion have we developed? Within our samsara world, there are so many instances, so many people modeling these virtues. We ourselves model this for others. In times of doubt, self-doubt, self-criticism, we can acknowledge ourselves by recollecting our own generosity, our own kindness. It's very powerful. And these are pure qualities. These are the qualities that we have as advanced spiritual beings, as bodhisattvas. The nature of these qualities are Buddhahood, Christ consciousness. We all have it. My first teacher would say, if you don't feel good about yourself, go and do something nice for someone. It will immediately shift your perspective. A deep practice is that when we're with others, to make an effort to see their good qualities, even if they're triggering us. As Jesus said, love our enemies. It's innately, naturally what we want to do. It's the road to the Christ, to the Buddha. It's very enjoyable. Brings a lot of bliss and joy to be nice. And to allow ourselves to receive the love from others as well. We're just as deserving. The more we love, the more we will be loved. It's a universal truth. We can practice that. It's a method. We speak of samsara, and it is a difficult, challenging place. But it is in love and faith and devotion that we rise above. Forgiveness is another method through which we awaken. As we've all heard, forgiving others is a way we forgive ourselves, and is how we will be forgiven. That's very powerful. And at a certain level in the awakening, we can see that nothing is worth holding on to. No negative feeling. No grudge. These types of emotions trap us, keep our mind spinning. And forgiveness is a way of liberation. It helps set us free. It's sometimes said that when we're critical of others or judging others, the reflection is that on some level we're really just criticizing ourselves or judging ourselves. So forgiveness also works for our own feelings and traits and characteristics of our very self. Before we can transcend the self, sometimes we need to heal the self so we can transcend it. In Buddhism, it's believed that the choices we make here as humans have evolutionary repercussions. Not just for us here, but for humanity and other levels as well. Another practice is to celebrate all our victories, all the ways we have acted benevolently towards humanity, towards others, towards any sentient being. In this, a lot of bliss also arises. A small thing we may do can mean so much to who we're doing it for. We may not realize. So we can continue to cultivate, practice patience, diligence, wisdom, generosity. If we feel like we've plateaued on the path, we can always go back to one of these practices. Being forgiving towards ourselves, towards others, is also an act of generosity. Receiving someone else's love is also an act of generosity. Allowing others to do things for us is an act of generosity. It also allows others to practice their karma yoga. Or allowing them to fulfill their life purpose when we receive. It's an act of generosity. So if we're not sure what to do, what's our next practice, next part of the path, next method, next book, we can practice being loving. Which all of us here are already doing. And as all of us have probably seen, the more we do this type of practice, the more natural it becomes, until it's really a way of life. It does replace the negative qualities, the poisons, anger, pride, jealousy, judgment. Before we come into enlightenment, it's beneficial, it's encouraged to become nice people. It's the foundation of the path. It can be called the path itself. The arising of bliss and joy is often an experience of wanting to give to others. Or allow ourselves to receive. Someone had asked in the Poa retreat to Khenpo Jigme, what's the point of all this? Why are we here? What are we doing? And the big question of life. I think it's to experience giving and receiving love. Very gratuitous. Very enjoyable. We are love. I think every tradition understands that. And it can be interpreted who knows how many ways. It plays out in art, in poetry, in dance, in the movies. We innately want to love. In some ways, we've become too afraid of each other to practice this openly. But deep down inside we love ourselves and we love each other. And we love this humanity and this world. And we're here to support it. And it's a beautiful play. And that's the message from all the masters and bodhisattvas and saints and beings. There's beauty in life. It may be relative reality. And that is also beautiful. It's an expression. So may we all enjoy this expression, this playground, this heaven that we're being transformed into. May our own evolutionary action be nirvana. The only reason for myself that I started teaching, the only reason I do a lot of things, is because the Khenpos ask me to and I love them. So I can't say no. I think that's a beautiful way to get through life. To say yes out of love. And I have deep appreciation for every one of us here who is doing all of the things that we do to serve ourselves, to serve others in really pure ways. Truly amazing, tremendous beings. And I feel such a depth of gratitude to all those in the Sangha, our beautiful teachers, and a deep devotion to this path, to this Sangha, to the teachers, to the teachings, to all the traditions that have helped shape me into a better person. So thank you to all of you for allowing me to serve my purpose. And may God be with us. and all of the masters and beings that watch over humanity.